2000年悉尼奥运会开幕前，高斯帕先生携手悉尼大学的艾伦·施耐德教授，首次发起并举办了旨在通过揭示成功秘诀，以更好地促进青少年的自我塑造与成长的冠军论坛。国际奥委会因此决定从2000年开始，将冠军论坛设立为各届奥运会的必有项目，成为奥运会开幕之前重要的文化活动之一。对于本次在北京举办的2008奥运冠军论坛，从筹备以来到现在，高斯帕先生也始终给予高度关注和大力支持。谈到他自己对冠军的理解，高斯帕先生说，他最看重的是冠军精神及强大的意志力。而尽管冠军各异，但在他的心中，真正的冠军只有一个人。那究竟谁能成为这位传奇人物心目中的唯一的英雄呢？
Okay, I attended the What Makes a Champion seminar at the Sydney University just before the Olympic Games in Sydney in 2000. And I made some comments there, but I was mostly inspired by what the other champions and leaders of industry and politics and education and sport made. But for me, what makes a champion is what is inside you. It's what I call willpower. It's that engine that drives you to do well. It's responding to the voice that all of us have inside us that we talk with. We talk with the voice inside us more than we talk to anybody else. And so I think that willpower is key, but there are many other things which go into making a champion. And most of all, that is the support that comes behind the champion and hard work. Not all people are born natural champions, but the most important thing in life is to make the most of yourself. And you don't have to be a champion in respect of a particular field. What really makes you a champion is to have done your personal best. That's my definition of a champion. And I've met many great people in my life. I've had wonderful opportunities. And sometimes you don't even recognize that you're being given an opportunity to meet an extraordinary person. But the first time I met President Nelson Mandela, who attended the first What Makes a Champion, I met him on a little airport, a grass airport, in a place called Neelsprut in South Africa in 1991, shortly after he had been released from 26 years in prison. And this was all through the period of apartheid, separateness in South Africa. And I met this man, and I was overwhelmed by his humility, his strength of character, and the fact that he bore no bitterness from his experience and was ready to contribute to his country. And for me, he is the champion of all champions that I've met, Nelson Mandela. And we were fortunate later to have him at the What Makes a Champion. But he's the greatest.
在高斯帕先生的演讲中，他谈到了自己的人生经验，并把这些经验归纳为成功的7要素。
So I'm going to try and talk a little bit about myself, and I'm going to go to the back of my talk and then go back to the front of it, and then after that we can take some more questions from you. And why I'm going to the back of it is that I've, if you like, tried to make 7 points. I've actually made 8, but I'll keep the 8th to myself for the moment. And maybe you'll sort of pick these points up, which I think I've learned over my time during the course of my conversation with you. And they're not necessarily points in a particular order. They're just things that I've learned until now in a very interesting and challenging life and a very rewarding life. The first one is to grasp the opportunity. All your lives until now, and as you go forward out of this university, opportunities will present themselves, and you must be alert to the possibility of that opportunity. Number two is, you must always consider with an opportunity the risks and rewards. Now, all new opportunities will carry risks, but they will all have rewards, and you must make a judgment about that. So it's not just a case of grabbing every opportunity, it's seeing and grasping the opportunity that you believe you will do best with. The third point is the value of family and peer group support. This has never left me in my life. The support that comes from your parents, from their parents, from your friends, from your relatives, the people who are close to you. You can't do it by yourself. The fourth one is, and it's a bit like that, you need mentors as you go through life. People who understand you and sense that you have certain strengths and certain ambitions and that you can make certain contributions. I talked about willpower, and I have it as number 5. But I think willpower is critical. If you can't get yourself out of the bed in the morning when you don't feel like it, or if you can't make that last effort with your studies, or if you can't make that last supreme effort when you just don't want to do it, it could be the difference between good and great. It could be the difference between an A result or an A- result. So willpower is very important. Winning and losing is my 6th point. You're not going to always win. If you think you're always going to win, then you'd better take another look at yourself. You're going to lose sometimes. So your ability to manage winning and recover from losing is critical, I find, in life. And my 7th point is very simple. It says never give up. Just never give up. If you believe in yourself and your objective, you have to keep going.
作为一名半生都与奥林匹克运动结缘的人，高斯帕先生的经历可谓一部传奇。他曾是一名优秀的田径选手，在1956年墨尔本奥运会上，他与对手联手摘得4×400米接力的银牌。退役后，他投身商界，先后担任过壳牌澳大利亚有限公司的董事长、伦敦壳牌国际石油公司董事等重要职务。那么，高斯帕先生究竟是怎样从一名商场精英转变成为一位世界体坛领导人的呢？他的人生中究竟经历了哪些挑战与机遇？他又是如何面对的呢？
I was born in Sydney a long time ago, before World War II. And I talk about that because although I've mostly lived in Melbourne, in Australia, and in many other parts of the world, Sydney was my birthplace. And I was born in, fortunately, to a very supportive family, a family which stood by me all my life. My father was involved in the war, in World War II. He fought in Papua New Guinea to the north of Australia. He was in Darwin when it was bombed by the Japanese in 1942. And we didn't think we'd see him again, but fortunately we did. I was an average student at school. I had my good days and my not so good days. If I liked the subject, I did very well, but if I didn't like the subject, I found it very boring, and I was lucky to get a pass. But I was very interested in sport, but not particularly good, until one day I ran in a race and won. And my friend said, wow, because I played a bit of football and a bit of cricket. You don't play too much cricket in China. But here was something that my friend said, oh, you've done well. It made me feel special. Never worry about feeling special. It's a very nice thing to feel special, and I felt special. And someone amongst the teachers said, oh, we must make you practice a bit more. And I did. And so during my school life, I went on to run very well and break many school records. Some of them are going back a long time. I finished my school education as vice captain of the school, which was a great honour for me. And I won the student sport prize. And I think it was really my experience in sport and the support of my family and friends that got me there to make me start to believe that I had a special ability. Then I went on to Teachers College. Then came my first opportunity, which was way out of my imagination, and that was a letter from a friend who had a friend in the United States who said, would you be interested in going to the United States to study? Well, I'm talking 1952, before you were all born, maybe even thought of. Half a century ago. The only America I knew were the scenes I saw on the movies. The gangsters in Chicago and the glitzy stars in Los Angeles, and the films were all, of course, black and white. And my mother was very worried about this, and she said, well, if you're going to the United States, and I haven't decided that you can, you're going to have to learn to box, to fight. I'm going to send you to get some training in boxing because you might run into some bad people over there. We don't know what. So she sent me off to the YMCA and I learned to box. Incidentally, I was in America studying for nearly 4 years and no one threw one punch at me. Oh, she said, also, I must teach you to iron a shirt because you have to look presentable and you can't afford somebody else to iron them. So I learnt to iron my shirt. And I'm the best ironer I ever met. That's something I can do very well. I'm almost a champion ironer. But this opportunity came because at that time the American universities were looking to build a foreign base of students. Now today we almost take it for granted. You have a very big body of foreign students at this university. One of my sons graduated from an American university last week. He was part of 30% of the University of Southern California. My daughter Sophie is going into her sophomore year as a journalist major. My son was in business. Now, 1950s were the early stages of the Americans trying to reach out and offer opportunities. And the fact that I could run, sport is a very integral part of the university system with their scholastic program. And the university offered me a partial scholarship if I could get myself to America. Now, in 1950, that was like saying, by the way, we'll give you some help, but we're over here on the other side of the moon. If you can get us there, well, we will give you an education. Anyhow, what happened is my student body, and they raised some money, and my father and mother sold the piano, and I went to part-time work. I worked at a steelworks on the coke ovens while made a bit of money, and we got it all together, and off I flew. I didn't have enough money for the return ticket, so I had to make it over there. I couldn't come back and not succeed. So I went to Michigan State University, and I won't give you every day of my life, but that was a huge opportunity. I could count on my single hand almost who would get that opportunity in those days. So I went on through the university. It was very good to me. I was on the international university group, which was very small. We used to give speeches around the community. That was a learning experience for me. I ran on the track team. I finally became captain of the track team. I went on to run in the Coliseum relays, where I had the opportunity to run against the world champions in my event and beat them. So it was a very, very good experience for me. And then I had to return back to Australia, and I did that. But one of the other lessons that I learned while I was in America came from my coach, a man called Coach Slaterman. Now, I ran a 400 meters. Do you know about a 400 meters race? Have you seen a 400 meters race? Once around? You got that? You know the start and the finish line is at the same point. Fortunately, you run in lanes and you can't get lost. So you didn't have to have a great intellect to be a 400 meters runner, but you had to have some other qualities. But what my coach would do when I knocked my starting blocks into the ground was he would walk past me and say, "Get back as soon as you can," which meant you'd better run very fast. So if you get back as soon as you can, that was the way to get your best result. And I used to take his advice, and he said, "Young man, when I say get back as soon as you can, in the race, I mean for you to run fast." But he said, you must also apply that to your life. And I use that theme during my book. It's about recovery. Because as you go through life, as I said earlier when I was introducing my main points, you will have setbacks. And you have two alternatives when you have a disappointment or a setback. You can make excuses, you can feel badly, you can draw back inside yourself, you can give up, or you can move on and you can recover. And that's a very important point, and I learned that. Now, I came back and I thought I'd better get a job. I wanted to get married. I'd kept contact with a young lady since my school days. So I went back to the cocoa mines to raise some money. I knew how to do that. And the administrators came over and said, "What are you doing over here?" And I said, "Well, I want to make some money." And they said, "Well, you come over here, we'll give you a job." An interesting job. I went across to the offices, got an interesting job, and then the government knocked on the door and said, "We want you to do national service." I said, "Well, I'll have to do that if the government says so." So I went into the national service. While I was in the national service, I got the opportunity to run in the 1956 Olympic Games. And then I got the opportunity to win a medal. But during those games, I also suffered the biggest disappointment in my sporting life. I was running in the individual race, and I had beaten almost all of the other contenders in America and had better times than others in the world. I went through the first round, the second round, winning each time, giving good times. I got to the semi-final. 3 out of 2 semi-finalists went into the final for a chance for the gold medal. Not on times, on place. In my semi-final, the first man got 46.1 seconds, the second man got 46.1 seconds, the third man got 46.2, the fourth man got 46.2. I was the fourth man. Suddenly, I'm not in the final, and I'd broken the national record. The other semi-final, 1, 2, 3, were nearly a second slower. The final was one slower. It took me a long time to get back on that one. But fortunately, I had the opportunity, with the help of 3 others, to win a silver medal. So you can get mixed winning and mixed losing together. You have to manage winning and you have to manage losing. After that, I thought I'd better go and find a real job. And I knocked on the door of the Shell Company. It's a big international petroleum company. They interviewed me, and I got a job. And part of it was because I was an international student with international experience and supporting experience. It gave me a start. And then I went through that period with wonderful opportunities, with overseas experience and so on, to become head of Shell Australia. Again, many doors open. And I was fortunate. You don't do this by yourself. The doors have to open. You have to grasp the opportunity. So that was my sporting life. That was my company life, which ended up working out of London, looking after the Asia-Pacific region, and bringing me into China for the first time.
提到高斯帕尔先生与中国的缘分，就不能不提到一个关键人物，他就是何振良先生。从最初的相识到成为至交，究竟是怎样的交往经历，使得高斯帕尔先生称何振良先生为导师，并把他视为中国奥林匹克运动中的冠军呢？
My first visit to China was in 1979, 1 year after Deng Xiaoping said, "We are going to open this country up." So I've grown with the change in your country, which has been one of the great highlights of my life. And now to have the honour to be a deputy chairman of the coordination oversight body for this Games. I could never have imagined that possibility when I first came in '79. And that was when I met another very important man, as I talk about mentors, and that's a man called He Jianling. He Jianling, you saw his picture up here, is, in my opinion, the champion of the Olympic movement in your country. I met him in 1979. I was over here to negotiate permits for offshore oil drilling off your coast. I also came to persuade the Chinese National Olympic Committee to take part in the Moscow Games not using the China flag, because a China flag was being used by Taiwan, and you couldn't have two flags and two anthems. So the president of the IOC said to me, Gosper, I want you to go across and talk to the National Olympic Committee, they're very good people, and persuade them that we have to cover this problem. So the China team, which had been out of the Olympic movement, this is mainland China, since 1958, was coming back for the first time. Invited back in 1979 by the International Olympic Committee. So he said, ask the National Olympic Committee of China to do this. Well, I sat down with Jianling and we worked through an interpreter, and we'd been talking through interpreters. And I put the proposal, and I said, Mr. He, here is a proposal to avoid any embarrassment about flags and anthems at the Olympic Games, with your return to the Olympic movement. I wouldn't have done it today, but that was my task. So I presented this to He Jianling. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not very good, and no Australian is good about sitting through silence. We like to fill the silence. We think that we should help people through the silence. He Jianling sat through the longest silence I've ever experienced in my life. I knew I was in trouble. Then in perfect English, and we'd been talking through interpreters, he said, Mr. Gosper, you've been sent here by the President of the International Olympic Committee? Yes. He said, you were a political science major. He'd done his homework. He said, you know our history since 1949. He said, if your country had been through so many challenges, had shed tears and blood through this progress, he said, you would march behind no one else's flag. Our proposition was that the team marched behind the Olympic flag, and that if an athlete won a medal, they stood for the Olympic anthem. He said, you would march behind no one else's flag and you would stand for no one else's anthem. Then he had a long pause. And he said, we are Chinese. We have time. Well, you would have thought that would have been the end of our relationship. Last Monday, I was in Wuxi. I was his honoured guest at the opening of a sports museum in his name in Wuxi. What an honour and a privilege for me. Now, in those 30 years or more that we've known each other, we have both been on the International Olympic Committee, the International Olympic Committee Executive Board, Vice Presidents of the International Olympic Committee, competitors for the Olympic Games. Sydney just beat Beijing in 1993 by two votes. The second narrowest margin in history. The other one was when Melbourne beat Buenos Aires in 1950 for the 1956 Games. We were competitors to see whether Sydney or Beijing would get 2000. He and I stood together on the podium in Monte Carlo in 1993, side by side, with the Chinese delegation in front, the Beijing delegation, the Sydney delegation in front, when Samaranch announced that Sydney had won. The first person to congratulate me and embrace me was He Jianling. Can you imagine his disappointment? Can you imagine? And yet he fought back over 8 years to bring Beijing back to the table. What happened in Moscow in 2001? We went 4 rounds of voting in Monte Carlo. The lowest number, that city fell out. Beijing won in the second round with 56 votes. The next level of votes were 22, which was Toronto, even before Paris, which got about 14 votes. And the other competitors were Istanbul and Osaka. Having come onto the Coordination Commission for Beijing, we have again worked together. We have forged a most remarkable friendship, the best. I've received advice from him, we've exchanged advice. We've grown together as international sports ambassadors, diplomats, learning through the International Olympic Committee. So it was a great honour for me to be with him, and that's what I mean about the Olympic spirit, that it breeds goodwill and friendship, and these will be the sort of things that we will talk about at the seminar of What Makes a Champion. When I said that we learn to become diplomats, I have to be very careful, because Samaranch, in our days when we were on the board and Samaranch was then president, he had many good ideas. I was telling Hong Wei earlier, he would say, better to avoid a problem than have to solve a problem. Now, what did that mean? It meant this man had very good perception. He was one of those people who could see something that didn't look very significant, but recognize if he didn't address it, it could become big very suddenly. He's also a person, if there was a big thing happening, he could tell whether it was going to be really a worry or not. So he would say, better to avoid the problem early than to have to solve it later. On diplomats, he would say, the definition of a diplomat is when he says yes, he means maybe. And when a diplomat says maybe, he means no. But if he says no, he's not a diplomat. It's very good advice. Samaranch was a mentor, a good teacher. He brought He Jinling along from being a fairly private Chinese person on new ground, concerned with China's interests in the Olympic movement, to being concerned with Asia's involvement in the Olympic movement, to being concerned about every country involved in the Olympic movement. And the same thing happened for me, going in concerned for Australia, then going concerned for Oceania, to becoming concerned with world events. So things all through this period went very well, but I had a very serious personal tragedy. Suddenly, one night, my 2 sons, my eldest sons, and myself lost my wife. She died within hours. 1 minute, vibrant, young, entertaining, supporting me as a corporate, and then we lost her. Now that took recovery. Imagine how that's going on in Sichuan now. What a tragedy to this country and to those people. But how quickly your country has moved with relief and support, and the recovery will be quite astonishing. And the openness with which this country has reported these events through the national media and the international media has been quite different in the experience of the world, and very good for the world and very good for China to have an insight, even by way of a tragedy. So what has happened in Sichuan is of huge magnitude, but when it happens to you personally, of course, it also has a big hit. But fortunately, with the support of my sons and friends, they got me back to work quickly. It's a bit like recovery. If you are thrown off a horse, the best thing you do is get back on that horse immediately. And you have to help yourself. So the Jianding experience has been essential in my Olympic life. And to be Vice Chairman of BOCOG has been yet another new experience, an opportunity presented to me. I did say to you that I'd given you 7 thoughts, and I'm now going to give you the 8th one. But let me repeat the 7 thoughts coming from the experience I've had as an athlete, as a businessman, and as an IC administrator. I've learnt that you must grasp the opportunity. 1, I've learnt that you must weigh the risks and the rewards. Look at the opportunity for what it is, but don't let it go past. You must value your family and friendship support. You have a need for mentors. They'll look out for you, but sometimes you have to identify them. You must have the willpower, often when it hurts most. When I was in Shell as a businessman and we were competing for a contract, one of my team would say, "This is hurting mentally, intellectually. We should close the deal now." And I would say, "Yes, we are hurting, but so are they. We'd better take the pain longer. And you'll get the deal that you want, but it must be satisfactory to both parties." That's willpower. Winning and losing must go together. You must learn to manage winning. You must learn to manage losing. You must recover quickly. Never give up. My 8th point is, good luck, Beijing. Good luck, what makes a champion.
高斯帕尔先生提到的成功7要素里，有一条是永不放弃。那么，是不是无论在什么样的情况下都要永不放弃呢？现场有观众针对这一点提出了疑问。那么，高斯帕尔先生对此会做出什么样的解释呢？
You mentioned that never give up.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very important for people to make himself a champion. But I think to give up wisely is also kind of a good quality that a person should have. So could you please specify on what kind of conditions you mean to never give up?
I guess there's a risk in saying never give up. Because sometimes if you're on the wrong track, you have to recognize that. So when I say never give up, I mean never give up on something you believe in. By all means, if you've, I'm sure this translates okay with your English, if you make a wrong call or you make a mistake and you recognize you make a mistake, well, it's not a good idea to stubbornly hold that course. Often it's hard to change course because you think you're going to lose face, or you think you'll embarrass yourself, or you might let other people down. But you've got to have the confidence to step back from a task if it's taking you nowhere or taking no one else anywhere. So when I say never give up, you have to recognize and believe very strongly that this is an issue that deserves your effort. That's the first thing, identifying that it's really an issue. It might be concerning others. Providing help, providing support. It might be essentially for yourself. Now, having decided that this is an issue where you never give up, then we come back to good old willpower. And that's the voice in you which says, you must stay there. You must stay with this. And this is not a magic quality. Always you've got these two alternatives. Somebody will be saying inside you, you don't really need this. Why don't you let other people do that? I can do that later. I'll get another chance. This is too hard. What am I doing this for? I'm not paid for this. Who will notice if I don't do it? You have to have the strength of character. And that's the key quality. The strength of character, having recognized that this is an issue you must persevere with, to have the willpower to go after it, to never give up. Because the easiest thing in the world, when it gets tough, is to give up. And I've had a number of events in my life where I've thought, is this really worth it? I've come under some very serious criticism in my own country on occasions for a decision I've taken or a move that I've taken. And one I can recall very clearly affected my family. It was an insult to me on my entire Olympic life. The facts were wrong, and I thought to myself, what am I doing this for? Never give up when you are down. If you're going to stop, do it when you're on top.
高斯珀尔先生精彩的演讲博得了台下阵阵掌声。除了他传奇的个人经历外，他举手投足间流露出的自信，更是征服了在场的每一个人。
Really successful person from you, and I see your confidence throughout your speech. And I know it's of course natural for people who got great achievements that have confidence to face everything, even failures, whatever. But for young students like us, and even for younger people that they haven't got great achievements, and as you know, maybe babies, when they come to the world and see everything's new and they fear everything, that means that people don't have confidence naturally. So how did you gradually get your confidence, and how did you, when it's like if you have failures do you have failures in your childhood or your younger life, and how did you cope with that?
And I was a young student a long time ago, and I never forget that. I never forget that I was an athlete. It's very important as a sports administrator. The simple answer that you build your confidence on platforms of success. They don't have to be big successes, but in life there are platforms of success because you've done well at something, you've achieved something, and these platforms take you up. And also you will step on platforms that can take you down because you've had a reversal. There's yin and yang in this, all of the time. Equals and opposites. Newton's third law is a big part of life. You must recognize very early what's in you, capability-wise, what you're good at. And you should do some things that you are good at. Doesn't matter in what field. And demonstrate to yourself a degree of satisfaction. You don't have to demonstrate it to other people. It does help if you receive some acclaim, as I did when I ran my first race. And some friends came across and patted me on the back, and it made me feel good and special. But platforms of success are very important, and with them, they build your confidence. I still get nervous when I give a talk. Before I came up before you today, I was nervous. If I wasn't nervous, I would be nervous. You have to have a bit of nervous energy to do your best. But I knew from experience that even though I got hot coming down here walking with Hong Wei-jie, who's much younger and much stronger than I am, that when I got up here, I would feel comfortable with you and could talk with you as I do. Very privately in many respects. Confidence is built. You are not born with it. And you must recognize your platforms of success opportunity, and you must recover where you've had disappointments. And as you move from student to postgraduate, to your new work environments, to maybe a family, to some successes in your business or political or government or educational life, your confidence will come. The other thing is practice. Like an athlete. Athletes get better with practice. Athletes get better with competition. So you must also be prepared to take on competition. Never back off the opportunity for competition. So build platforms of success with yourself. Don't avoid competition. So you have to work on that conversation with yourself. Remember I said, this voice that's always talking with you, your conscience, tells you what's right and what's wrong, what you can do, what you can't, where to be cautious, where to take a risk. You must satisfy yourself you're doing your personal best. And if that happens, then you're a true champion and you can live with yourself. The other point is, be alert when somebody says you are good at something. Don't ignore it. Humility and modesty are very important qualities. Independence is much more important than arrogance. So when people compliment you, and they will, make no mistake in your lives, you'll do something well, or continue to do it well, or surprise somebody. It might be a lecturer, it might be someone in your family. Listen to that. That's a big message. That might be the advice you've been looking for that you build on. And the third thing is, if you've decided that you've got certain abilities that you want to explore further, or someone has pointed out a strength in you, look around for somebody who can give you encouragement. That person might not be in your family. It might not be in your peer group. It might be somebody quite outside of that. You have to work at it. I remember being taught at school at one stage that in a railway station, this lady was sitting on a big bag doing nothing. It's very heavy. Everybody walked past her. And just a little bit further, there was a smaller, older lady struggling to pick up the bag. Someone stopped and helped her. So you have to help yourself. You have to work at yourself. You are the person most likely to get you into the A team. And it comes with time. It takes time. And you're still always learning in life. I'm 75 years. I read more now than I've ever read before. I listen to the counsel of my children. The oldest is 50, the youngest is Sophie at 18. They've always got a message out there.
从一名极具天赋的体育运动员，到一位叱咤商界的领军人物，最后到国际奥委会出色的官员，凯文·高斯珀的生命历程可谓始终与奥运结缘。无论在哪个领域，他都体现出自强不息的奋斗精神和正直真诚的生活态度。奥运既让他体会到了超越自我的澎湃激情，也让他从此看到更广阔、更精彩的世界。演讲接近尾声时，北京大学向高斯珀先生赠送了一幅他本人的肖像。高斯珀先生显得十分高兴，并且表示这幅肖像看起来更帅。